You are alone in the kitchen, looking for your keys, and suddenly you hear your own voice say, "Where did I put them?" For half a second, it feels funny, maybe embarrassing, because nobody asked anything, and yet you answered the room. Maybe you glance around, as if the toaster is judging you. But this small private moment is not as strange as it feels. We do this more often than we admit, especially when nobody is watching. You might be cooking and mutter, "Salt first, then garlic." Like you are hosting a tiny cooking show for one. You might be driving alone and say, "No, take the next exit," though your hands are already moving. You might open your laptop, stare at 20 tabs, and tell yourself, "Come on, focus," with the tired hope of someone negotiating with a sleepy raccoon. Or you replay an awkward conversation from 3 hours ago and whisper, "Why did I say it like that?" as if some invisible court has requested testimony. First thing worth noticing, talking to yourself out loud is usually not dramatic. It is small, practical, and human, like tapping your pockets before leaving home or reading a sign twice because your brain was busy somewhere else. In that moment, a thought that could have stayed silent becomes sound. Something floating inside your mind gets placed into the room, where your ears can catch it and your attention can hold it still. I find this fascinating because it makes the mind feel less like a hidden machine and more like a person trying to keep up with itself. We like to imagine thinking as clean and quiet, like neat words scrolling across a screen. Real thinking is messier. It overlaps. It loops. It loses the keys while trying to remember why it walked into the kitchen. So sometimes the brain recruits your voice. Not because something is wrong, but because language can be easier to track when it leaves your head. A spoken sentence gives a thought edges. Silent thought can be fast, vague, slippery, and too good at disappearing before you know what it meant. When you say, "Where did I put them?" you are not only asking a question, you are turning a foggy search into a clear task. It can still feel strange because we have been trained to think it is strange. Movies often use self-talk as a punchline, or as shorthand for someone losing touch, being too intense, too lonely, too much. A character mutters in a hallway, and the music tells us how to react. But ordinary private self-talk is far less dramatic. Most of the time, it is common, useful, and surprisingly smart. It is the mind using the body, especially the voice, to organize what is happening inside. Think about children working through a puzzle. They say, "This piece goes here," or "No, not that one," while their hands keep moving. We do not usually panic when children do this. We understand that speech helps them guide attention, test choices, and stay with the problem. Adults do not fully outgrow that. We mostly learn to hide it better. Somewhere along the way, the voice moves inward, and thinking becomes more private, more socially polished, more acceptable in elevators. But when pressure rises, focus thins, or emotion gets loud, that inner voice may step back out. You hear yourself say, "Okay, first email, then laundry," and suddenly the day feels slightly less like a flock of birds flying in different directions. The voice becomes a handle. A spoken thought can slow the mind just enough for you to work with it. If you are anxious, it can name what is happening. If you are distracted, it can point your attention. If you are unsure, it can make an option solid enough to inspect. So the better question is not, "Is it weird that I talk to myself?" That question usually comes from embarrassment, not curiosity. The better question is, why would saying something out loud help more than thinking it silently? Because sometimes it does help. Saying phone, wallet, keys at the door can prevent the tiny tragedy of reaching the stairs and realizing your phone is still charging. Saying left lane, then turn can keep your attention on the road instead of tomorrow's meeting. Saying it's fine, slow down, may not make everything fine, but it can give your nervous system a cue it can hear. Your own voice can become a small signal of steadiness. That does not mean every kind of self-talk is equally helpful, or that every private sentence needs deep analysis. Some of it is practical. Some of it is silly. Some of it is your brain doing maintenance with whatever tool is nearby. Still, there is a quiet mystery here. Why does a sentence become more powerful when it leaves your mouth? Why can a task feel clearer after you describe it? Why can a choice feel less tangled when you hear yourself explain it to nobody? Part of the answer involves attention. Spoken words pull focus toward one thing and away from 10 others. Part of it involves memory. When you say something, you create another trace of it, not only as an idea, but as sound, movement, and rhythm. Part of it involves emotion and control. A voice can comfort, command, correct, encourage, or interrupt a spiral before it gathers speed. And yes, part of it may involve loneliness, not in a tragic way, but in the ordinary human way language helps us feel accompanied even briefly. So this is not a diagnosis checklist. Most private self-talk lives in the everyday space between thinking and acting, between feeling something and knowing what to do next. It appears when life asks you to coordinate yourself. It shows up when the brain needs structure, pacing, or outside help from its own mouth. It is not proof that you are falling apart. It may be proof that your mind is trying to stay organized in real time. Once the habit stops looking strange, the next question becomes more interesting. What is your brain doing when it turns thought into sound? Planning English text revision. When thought stays inside your head, it can feel weightless in wrong way. It floats, bumps into other thoughts, changes shape, disappears, then returns wearing different hat. You meant to remember one thing, then suddenly you are thinking about laundry, email, your mother's birthday, and why your left knee made that sound yesterday. Very normal brain behavior. One useful way to understand this is working memory. Working memory is small mental desk, place where your mind keeps few things it needs right now. Maybe that desk holds a plan, a worry, a number you are trying not to forget, and a half-remembered errand waving from corner. Problem is, desk is not large. When it gets crowded, one more thought can slide off edge. Speaking out loud does something practical. It moves one piece of thought into room. Once thought becomes sound, your ears catch it, your attention can point toward it, and your brain has something firmer to hold. Self-talk becomes less being weird and more using environment as extra thinking space. Think about cooking from recipe. You look at page, turn to counter and say, then stir, then heat the pan. That sentence is not decoration. It keeps next steps from collapsing into one messy cloud. Or imagine leaving house while already late. You pat pockets and mutter, wallet, keys, charger. Maybe you say it twice, because charger is emotionally slippery. Words become temporary checklist. Each time you hear them, attention returns to same three objects instead of drifting toward traffic, weather, or whether you answered that message. That is task control. Speech slows mind just enough to stop it from skipping steps. Silent thought can jump fast, which helps when you are imagining, connecting ideas, guessing, or panicking about 7 things at once. But many everyday tasks do not reward speed as much as sequence. First this, then that, then check again. Boring but powerful. This is why people talk through spreadsheet mistakes. Okay, this column is totals, this one is tax. Why is this number bigger than that one? Hearing problem laid out can reveal where logic broke. Voice forces thought to walk instead of teleporting, and sometimes that walk is where answer appears. Same thing happens during physical repair. You might crouch under sink, hold loose screw, and narrate like very tired documentary host. This piece goes here, no, not that way, turn it around. If you have ever said, no, not that drawer, the other drawer, to yourself, you were not auditioning for a one-person play. You were managing attention with whatever tools were available. Attention drifts unless anchored. That is ordinary and inconvenient human fact. You can intend to focus, yet some part of mind wanders off to inspect random memory from 2016. Out loud words act like little anchors because they use more than one system at once. You form language, move mouth, control breath, hear sound, and track meaning. That creates loop. Silent intention may be easy to ignore, but spoken sentence has texture, it lands in body. This does not mean speaking out loud is magic. It will not turn chaotic day into clean productivity montage, but it can give brain handle when task has too many small moving parts. And many parts of modern life are just small moving parts wearing trench coat. Research on private speech points same way. Children often talk to themselves while solving puzzles, building things, or following rules. Over time, that speech may become quieter and more internal, more like inner voice adults know. Adults still use it too, especially when tasks are complex, unfamiliar, or easy to mess up. Studies on verbalizing and task performance suggest that saying things aloud can help people search faster, remember instructions, and regulate actions. If you say name of object you are looking for, your visual attention may stay better tuned to it. If you repeat instructions, one step is less likely to evaporate before you reach it. If you talk yourself through process, you create rhythm your behavior can follow. Simple, but not small. This also explains why self-talk often gets louder under pressure. When everything is calm, mental desk has space. When you are rushed, distracted, tired, or holding too many details at once, desk gets crowded. Saying thought aloud is like putting sticky note on wall. Suddenly, it no longer competes for same tiny patch of mental space. There is subtle relief in this too. Spoken thought can feel less slippery than unspoken one. Once you hear yourself say, I need to finish this form, then call them, then leave. Day may still be busy, but it has shape. You have turned fog into steps. No, it does not always sound elegant. Sometimes self-talk is half-sentence, mutter, warning noise, or one dramatic wait. Sometimes it is you scolding object as if object chose betrayal. Still, beneath comedy, function is serious. Brain is trying to keep action lined up with intention. Self-talk is not random noise. It is thought becoming graspable. When your voice enters room, it gives attention place to land, memory cue to return to, an action path to follow. But self-talk is not only about getting things done. Sometimes voice appears when feeling is too slippery to manage silently. Sometimes voice appears because feeling has started moving faster than thought can hold. You read tense message and room feels smaller. Nothing has technically happened yet, but body already prepares arguments, apologies, maybe one full disappearance from society. Then you hear yourself say, "It's fine, let's think." Small sentence, big job. Or it happens before difficult call as you walk with phone in hand, testing first line. No, don't say it like that, start calmer. Or after mistake, when shame rushes in and you whisper, "Okay, fix what can be fixed." From outside, it may look like nervous muttering. From inside, it is emotional pacing. When feelings speed up, speech slows them to speed of sentences. Panic arrives as one wave, but language comes out word by word, with order, pauses, and breath. Sentence gives emotion rail to run on. You are not erasing feeling or pretending everything is fine, though that phrase appears most when everything is clearly not fine. You are giving feeling container small enough to handle for next few seconds. First breathe, then answer. That is not melodrama, that is regulation. One useful part is what psychologists call self-distancing. Experience is ordinary. Instead of being fully inside storm, you create small step back by speaking to yourself as if to someone you care about. You can handle this. Come on, Maya, slow down. Chris, do one thing at a time. It may feel strange, but it changes position you speak from. For a moment, you become both person having feeling and person coaching feeling. One part is angry, embarrassed, scared, or overloaded. Another part says, "I see that, but we still need to choose what happens next." That distance can reduce intensity, not because emotion is foolish, but because emotion is no longer only voice in room. You have added witness. You have added guide. Sometimes that is enough to make action possible. When you use your own name, brain can treat situation with more perspective, almost as if problem belongs to someone near you, instead of being fused with your whole identity. You are still you, but not swallowed whole. This helps especially with shame, because shame hates structure. Shame prefers blur. It says, "You always do this, everyone noticed. This proves something terrible about you," and tries to say all at once loudly without evidence. Spoken self-talk forces shame to stand in line. It has to become sentence. Once it becomes sentence, you can hear it. "Everyone hates me now. Is that true, or pain wearing costume of certainty? I ruined everything." Did you ruin everything? Or make one uncomfortable mistake that needs repair? Out loud, exaggerated thoughts are easier to catch because they sound like claims, not weather. Silent rumination loops because thoughts blur together. One worry touches next, old memory joins, imaginary argument appears. And suddenly you defend yourself in court nobody opened. Speech interrupts that blur. It asks mind to choose beginning, middle, and end. That choice reveals much. If you say, "I am upset because they ignored my message," you may notice you do not know they ignored it. If you say, "I need to apologize," you may notice apology is clear, but self-punishment is extra. If you say, "I cannot deal with this," you may hear cannot and feel some part answer, maybe not all of it, but one piece. Good sentence can loosen tight knot. Self-talk is not noise, it is self-guidance. That line matters because it changes mood around whole habit. We often imagine mature person as someone silent inside, perfectly composed, never whispering encouragement in grocery store parking lot. But real self-regulation is often less polished. It sounds like steady, try again, don't send that yet, drink water first, or walk away for 2 minutes. It sounds practical. It sounds kind. Kindness matters because tone changes everything. Some people talk to themselves like harsh coach with whistle and clipboard. It may create movement, but it also creates dread. Warmer voice does something different. It gives structure without turning mind into courtroom. There is quiet self-trust in that. You are saying, "I can be upset and still help myself." You are saying, "I do not need to wait for someone else to name what is happening before I begin to settle." That does not mean you never need support. Humans need support. But there is strength in meeting yourself in middle of moment and offering one clear next line. One important difference needs naming. Ordinary self-talk feels connected to your own thoughts, even when spoken aloud, emotional or awkward. If someone hears voices that feel external, threatening, uncontrollable, or disconnected from their own thinking, that is different from common self-coaching and deserves professional support. No panic, no shame. Different experience, different kind of care. For most people, talking out loud alone is not sign mind is breaking. It is often sign mind is trying to organize feeling, before feeling drives car. You are giving emotion rhythm. You are turning overload into sequence. You are making room between impulse and response. Maybe that is why this habit feels so human. We do not think only in perfect private silence. We pace, whisper, rehearse, correct, encourage, complain at cabinet doors, and negotiate with ourselves at red lights. We use voice to hold steady when inside gets loud. So next time you hear yourself say, "Okay, what are we doing?" after hard message, awkward call, or mistake that makes stomach drop, do not rush to judge it. Hear what voice is trying to do. It is not performing for anyone. It is keeping you company while you return to yourself. And if self-talk helps feelings settle, it also reveals something deeper about how we learn to think in first place. Asterisk planning concise 4,000 char output. And if self-talk helps feelings settle, it also shows something deeper about how we learn to think at all. We did not arrive in adulthood with silent mind already installed. We learn thinking out in open and small sounds. Rules, sentences spoken into room. Watch child building blocks. This one goes here. No, not that one. Big one first. That child is not giving speech to carpet. That child is thinking with volume. A child whispering rules during game does same thing. Don't step on the line. Wait your turn. Red means stop. Language is still becoming tool they can carry inside, so for a while they carry it outside. What looks like random chatter is often self-control being built in public. Child uses words like tiny handles on big slippery world. Plan gets easier to follow when it has sound, shape, rhythm. Over time, those spoken instructions move inward. Voice gets quieter. Tool stays. That is why adult self-talk should not be treated like embarrassing leftover from childhood. Much of it began as normal way to guide attention, manage frustration, and track what comes next. We first talk our way through things, then think our way through things. Same engine, lower volume. But volume returns when life gets harder. When task is complicated, emotion high, or room quiet enough to feel safe, mind reaches for old tool again. You misplace keys and say, "Where did I put them?" You open 12 browser tabs and mutter, "Focus, one thing." You cook recipe and talk to onions like junior employees. Under pressure, old useful tools come back. That does not mean you are going backward. Brain may be choosing something reliable, something that once helped turn chaos into sequence. Whispering wallet, phone, keys before leaving is not glamorous, but it works. Here, self-talk becomes more than thinking trick. It touches identity. Way you talk to yourself is often stitched from voices you have heard before. Teacher said, "Check your work." Parent said, "Hurry up." Coach said, "Breathe." Friend said, "You've got this." Past version of you learned what to say to get through hard day. Some voices are useful. Some funny, some weirdly specific like old math teacher living rent-free in your brain, still reminding you to show your steps. Some inner voices may carry harsh tones from difficult experiences. Tones that make ordinary mistakes feel like evidence in trial. That matters, but it is not whole story. Self-talk is learned, which means it can be revised. Not overnight, not by pretending every problem is adorable. But with practice, inner voice can be edited, softened, made more accurate. I think one of the kindest things you can learn is how to sound less like a courtroom in your own head and more like a steady friend. Different styles of self-talk do different jobs. Instructional self-talk says, "Open the file. Read the first line. Start there." Motivational self-talk says, "Come on, you can do 5 more minutes." Critical self-talk says, "That was stupid," and sometimes believes shame is shortcut to improvement. Usually, terrible manager. Playful self-talk makes boring tasks survivable. "All right, laundry mountain, we meet again." Analytical self-talk debates both sides of decision like tiny panel discussion in kitchen. Reassuring self-talk stays quiet and steady. You are overwhelmed, not doomed. It takes next step. You probably have default style. Some people narrate tasks like documentary about making coffee. Some debate decisions out loud, weighing options until room itself feels invited. Some give tiny pep talks, like coaching tired but beloved teammate through one more lap. Tired teammate still deserves good coach. Useful question is not, do I talk to myself? Most of us do, in one form or another. Better question is, what kind of voice shows up when I need help? If voice instructs, it may be trying to create order. If it motivates, it may be trying to create momentum. If it criticizes, it may be trying to protect you from failure, even when method is rough. That roughness is worth noticing without turning it into another reason to attack yourself. Critical voice often believes it is being responsible. It says, "If I am hard enough on you, you will not mess up." But fear is not same as wisdom. Voice can be firm without being cruel. Maybe this is adult version of learning to think out loud. Not stopping voice completely, not forcing mind into perfect silence, but learning what kind of language helps you live better. You can keep practical phrases that organize you. You can keep humor that gets you through dishes, bills, traffic, and strange little admin tasks of being alive. You can question sentences that make you smaller. Hearing yourself speak in an empty room can feel intimate because you are catching trace of how your mind was built, how it learned from others, how it learned from you, and how it still tries to guide you through uncertainty. Voice is not childish. It is old practice meeting present need. Once we see self-talk as learned and changeable, practical question becomes simple. How can you use it well without letting it turn against you? And that brings us to the useful part. If this voice is already there, if it shows up while you cook, clean, hunt for your charger, or prepare for a conversation you would rather avoid, the question is not, how do I erase it? Better question. How do I make it work with me? A small sentence said out loud can change the shape of a moment. One use is sequencing. When your brain feels crowded, saying the order of things can make the space inside your head less crowded too. First I send the email, then I make the call, then I get water. That is not dramatic. That is navigation. You turn a messy cloud of tasks into a line you can follow. This is why people talk through recipes, repairs, errands, packing, and chores where one misstep creates 20 extra minutes of nonsense. Sometimes the most adult sentence in the world is keys, wallet, phone, door. Self-talk also helps with calming, especially when your body reacts faster than your thoughts can organize. This is uncomfortable, not dangerous, gives your nervous system a handrail. It does not remove stress or pretend everything is fine, but it can slow the spiral. Before a call, your body may treat the ringtone like a small emergency. Saying this is awkward, not fatal, gives your mind truth and comic relief at once. You can also use self-talk for choosing. When two options keep bouncing around in your head, speaking them can make them less slippery. If I go now, I get it done. If I wait, I get more rest, but tomorrow gets crowded. Suddenly, you are not only feeling pressure, you are hearing trade-offs. Sometimes best self-talk is one clean question. What is the next small step? That sentence is powerful because it refuses to argue with your whole life at once. It brings you back to the floor. For remembering, out-loud speech can act like a mental bookmark. You say, I'm putting the passport in the front pocket because future you deserves evidence. You say the oven is off because later anxiety may try to reopen the case. It still might. But now you have a witness. Then there is reality checking, which is more delicate. When your mind tells a story too quickly, speak a slower sentence into the room. I know they sounded short, but I do not know what they meant yet. Or, I made one mistake, not a complete disaster. That is not softness as an excuse. That is accuracy. Before trying to improve every sentence you say to yourself, start with tone. Tone hits the body before content finishes loading. A harsh sentence can tighten your chest, lift your shoulders, and lock your jaw, even if the plan inside it is technically useful. Get it together, you idiot may contain a wish to focus, but it arrives like a slap. Replace insults with precise guidance. Instead of, I'm so stupid, try, I missed one step, find it. Instead of, I always ruin this, try, this part needs more attention. Instead of, what is wrong with me, try, what information am I missing? Same accountability. Less shame. This matters because shame is noisy, it feels intense, so we mistake it for discipline. But a cruel inner voice often burns energy you needed for the actual problem. Then you have to manage the task and recover from how you spoke to yourself. That is expensive. A useful voice does not have to be syrupy or fake. You do not need to stand in front of a mirror whispering, I am a radiant thunderbolt of productivity. Unless that is truly your brand, a useful voice can be plain. Slow down, check the date, breathe before you answer. Try again, but smaller. Social context exists and humor helps. Yes, maybe do not deliver a full motivational speech in the frozen food aisle unless you are ready for an audience near the peas. In public, a quiet mutter, a note on your phone, or a sentence under your breath may fit better. Society has its little rules. But small reminders are part of being human. People rehearse count, curse gently at jam printers, whisper street names, and tell themselves not to forget the one thing they came here to buy. Goal is not perfect silence. Goal is understanding what voice is doing, and we should not romanticize every kind of self-talk. Most out-loud self-talk is normal, practical, even charming in its strange way. But if the voice becomes relentlessly cruel and impossible to interrupt, tied to commands that feel unsafe, or starts making daily life harder, that deserves care, not panic. Care, normal self-talk helps you function. Harmful patterns trap you. If talking to yourself helps you find the next step, calm your body, remember what matters, or laugh at the absurdity of being alive, it is probably serving you. If it corners you, scares you, or pushes you toward harm, reach out to a mental health professional, or someone safe who can help you sort it out. Support does not mean you failed at thinking. It means your mind is carrying something that should not be carried alone. Now picture that opening scene again. Someone alone in kitchen talking through tiny chaos of ordinary life. Keys, mug, email, call. Maybe they find what they were looking for. Maybe they finish the call they were avoiding. Maybe they get through one more task without turning whole morning into a trial. Nothing magical happens. No grand transformation. Just person realizing voice in empty room is not proof that something is wrong with them. It may be a small companion system inside attention, a way mind gives shape to what it already knows. So if you talk to yourself when no one is around, maybe you do not need to flinch from it. Maybe you are not losing your mind. Maybe you are helping your mind hear what it already knows.